Call the July 19th, 2022 meeting to order. Dee, would you call the roll?
Yes. Commissioner Powelson?
Present.
Commissioner Pilar?
Present.
Commissioner Van?
Present.
Commissioner Madigan?
Present.
Chair Newman?
Present. Okay, do we have any public expression? Would anyone, members of the public, like to make a comment on this time on non-agendized items?
We had no one present in the meeting room, so.
All right. Then we'll move through to the consent calendar. The consent calendar is considered a routine and non-controversial and is generally acted upon by the board at one time without discussion. Any board members may request that any item be removed from the consent calendar for individual consideration. I know we haven't traditionally done consent calendars, but it is quite nice to do it all at once if we have many items on that need kind of more normalized approval. Would anyone like to remove any of the items from the consent calendar? Our only item is the approval of the minutes from the May 10th, 2022 meeting.
There's a revised agenda that includes the resolution allowing us to have a Zoom meeting. So that's also on the consent calendar.
As well as the resolution. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve?
So moved.
A second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Say aye.
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 All right, so we'll move into item number 4 on our agenda, reports. We have California Fish and Wildlife biologist Jennifer Garrison and Tom Blatter on our agenda. Jennifer or Tom, would you like to say anything at this time? Do you have any updates for us?
Yes, thank you, Anna. I appreciate that. So Tom Batter has left Mendocino County. He is no longer CDFW Mendocino unit biologist. He's taken the statewide elk coordinator, elk and pronghorn coordinator position in Sacramento. But the good news is that he'll continue to work with those of us in region on elk and connectivity. However, Tom's position, it's an environmental scientist position, is now open in Mendocino County and is listed on the Cal personnel pages. Anyone is interested in applying.
Thank you for the update, Jennifer. Do you have anything on the secretary's report?
I sent you all just a list, the correspondence list, which is just a list of everything that I've forwarded to you since the last meeting. I asked planning and building for a current budget from you, but never heard back from them in time, at least not until before this meeting. But they estimated that you guys had about $120,000 in your budget. And then I just want to reiterate that we need to decide, or you need to decide, if you're going to participate by Zoom or in person long before we get to the point of setting the agenda, so that we don't have to, it's just a courtesy thing, so we don't have to use a conference room that we don't need. Somebody else could use this, and it just makes it easier on anybody. And I just want to remind you also, as I stated in my email, that this, the ability to meet remotely could go away at any time. So just be aware.
Thank you for that, and our apologies today on the confusion of the meeting times and locations. As the treasurer as well, do we have a treasurer's report? Red Hawk?
I do not have a treasurer report.
Okay, moving on, items for discussion and possible action. We have a presentation on county riparian and wetland setbacks. coming from the Mendocino County Draft Oak Ordinance and the Mendocino Cypress Woodlands. Jennifer Garrison and Commissioner Paulson have brought this. There is a recommended action here, but let's go through the presentation first.
Before we get to the presentation, I just want to do a little bit of kind of a back story on it. So it was brought to my attention that Mendocino County, outside of the coastal zone, really doesn't have any solid criteria. There's guidelines on stream setback, wetland setback, issues, stuff like that. And so I reached out to Jennifer Garrison. She has a fantastic presentation that we should probably, after reviewing this, talk about presenting something to the Board of Supervisors to update the current policies in the county. So our surrounding counties, Humboldt, Lake, and Sonoma, are way ahead of us and having not just guidelines, but actual ordinances in place for the entire county. And, unlike us, where we have the coastal zone, which is pretty regulated, we need to, I feel, push this forward. So with that, Jennifer, if you would like to give your presentation, that would be fantastic.
Sure, thank you. It'll take me a second to, how do I share my screen?
You have a share screen button at the bottom of your Zoom.
Of course, I had it reduced, sorry. It was a little, there we go. So to start, I heard that the topic was also Mendocino Cypress Woodland, and I would like to, in another time, to be able to give that presentation. This one is focused on stream and wetland setbacks. The issue is that in Mendocino County, the general plan has 5 sections. Section 2 is all of the requirements. Section 5 includes all of the biological information for the county. And so they are recommendations, but they are not requirements. They're not policy of the county unless they go into Section 2. And so talking to Red Hawk, he had asked if the department could put something together. This is something that I've been working on for a while and have talked to county building and planning about. So with that, all of the surrounding counties, Lake, Sonoma, Napa, of course, and Humboldt have general plan updates, ordinances, or combining districts that define wetlands and streams. They all include grandfather clauses. So before this date, this is the action, that action is excluded. They establish setbacks, distances that are really straightforward, and they vary depending upon the stream type or the wetland type. And all of them have extent limits. And as an example, for Lake County, no setback shall ever be more than 200 feet from the stream. And that would be in a situation where there's just a lot, it's a very wide stream, it's a very wide riparian corridor. And why CDFW is very interested in stream and wetland setbacks for Mendocino County is that without those, so often landowners don't have straightforward guidance to inform their development. And so they go to county planning, and oftentimes county planning says, perhaps you need to contact CDFW to, because you're near a stream. And it can just become very confusing for developers. And also thinking forward, as you can see in this photo with defensible space, having setbacks away from streams is important, because then you're not cutting the riparian vegetation to keep your 100-foot defensive space. Here's just an example. I'm not going to go through it, but all the way through, but this is from Sonoma County. They have a flow chart of yes, no, is it a designated stream? If it's not, then the setback is this or that. If it is a designated stream, what's the riparian corridor? Here's what the setback is. It'll be 50, 100, or 200, depending upon how it's been zoned. and then let's say it's not a designated stream, but it's a waterway, and then does it have banks steeper than 2.5 to 1? Yes, then it'd be 30 feet or 25 feet from top. In this way, this would be my hope for Mendocino County, that it's very, very clear and straightforward for landowners before they ever go to county planning. Humboldt, theirs is the most recent. Sonoma's was updated in 2019, as was Lake, but the most recent ordinance to come through is Humboldt County in 2014. And so the way Humboldt did it is they talk about stream management areas and stream transition lines. And so you can see here that their ordinance defines it's pretty much top of bank for being the stream transition line, and that's where riparian vegetation is permanently established, and then it goes back. And so the entire stream management area would go to the edge of the riparian. Here's the riparian corridors and extent. And oftentimes, why this becomes so important is that, and by the way, all the photos that are forthcoming are not of Mendocino County, they're all ones from Humboldt. But we have become accustomed to some instances where landowners build their homes or structures within the riparian corridor and in the floodplain and on the banks. And then this happens. So the land starts to, once it becomes constrained, the creek becomes constrained, things start to erode and fall into the creek, and then infrastructure becomes exposed. And so the solution so often is to put in riprap along this entire bank. And what you find happening is that the stream, now further constrained, begins to bounce and move. And I would say, unfortunately, within the next few years, all of this will be eaten back, and this building will become threatened because this riprap, it never lasts, it's always undercut. And unfortunately, what that really results to is additional land loss by landowners. CDFW since 1994, and then again with Humboldt through 2014, what we have recommended throughout Region 1 is that stream setbacks be at the top of bank or at the edge of the riparian drip line, whichever is greater. So from the previous graphic, here's the top of bank, here's the edge of riparian. Notice I did it for the two different types because, you know, it's not just the trees, it's also the shrubs. The drip line is the edge of where the vegetation is. And then there are setbacks. Please note that the setbacks are different depending upon the width of the riparian corridors. All counties have different setback distances depending upon the stream type. Is it a river? Does it flow year round? So is it perennial or is it seasonal? Here's an example of what I would call potentially an intermittent seasonal creek. And this was a photograph that was taken. You can tell over, previously probably, 40s, 50s, 60s, there's a structure built that impinges upon the stream. And then the vegetation on the bank has been removed. New riprap has been added. The removal of this vegetation, which was primarily invasive blackberries, you can see the old riprap. You can also see the bank slumping. And the reason for this is that this, the structure constrained, then it started to bank, erode away. This riprap here is helping cause this erosion. And then because the bank wasn't planted with riparian plants, and then invasive blackberry comes in, then that being removed, and that is important. I had this conversation with Red Hawk about how blackberry can be quite the fire hazard. So planting appropriate things to stabilize this bank, because as you can see, the riprap's not working. They're just going to keep adding and adding, and then the stream's just going to keep ripping it back, and most likely will just continue with loss of land further back. This is a parking lot driveway, and that is at the edge of the creek with some vegetation. Can't see from the photo, but the creek is approximately 5 feet away. you can already see the parking lot and the paved area is cracking and slumping to go into the creek. And so just another reason why having setbacks are important. Beyond the health and water quality, this land will just continue to slough away because of the movement. Wetland setbacks in all the counties are very straightforward. It is from the edge of the wetland delineation boundary, and the distances vary. So they can be 50 feet, 100 feet, depending if they're seasonal or perennial. In some cases, they're as low as 30 feet, but they're extremely straightforward based upon the wetland setback. With that, that's my presentation. If anybody has any questions, and thank you for the opportunity to present this tonight.
Thank you, Jennifer. I think it was a fantastic presentation, and then to the rest of the commissioners, you can see that we should do something. We should. I propose that we create an ad hoc committee and write a letter or come up with a presentation to give to the Board of Supervisors to start this process. We need to be proactive and make a change in the county policy, because what the current policies are just guidelines outside of the coastal zone, and we need to do something. And so before I go on, I should ask is, Patty has a question, obviously, and so go ahead.
Thank you. Can you guys hear me okay?
I got you.
Okay, well, so having been, part of riparian restoration in the county for a long time, I can recall when Roland Sanford was at the county building and planning department in the water agency. And he was proposing something similar, and I don't know whether that archive exists, but it was a riparian setback. I think one of the things that was interesting was how he addressed agriculture, because I think unless agriculture has an exemption or it has some guidelines that are different from the setbacks for building structures, that our biggest obstacle will be getting support from the Farm Bureau. And so for something like this. So I think that a presentation to the Farm Bureau and a dialogue with farmers and ranchers about how this would impact them so they don't just automatically say no, would be a good recommendation that I think would build success here. Because I fully support it. But I do think that there will be a lot of subjectivity about delineation of the wetlands and whether people need to get an official wetlands delineation, who pays for that? Is that the developer? Is that the landowner? And also for ag, exactly how does this apply to ag? So those are my questions and concerns that I think are worth addressing. Thank you.
Thanks, Patty. Jennifer, do you want to speak next? And Patty, would you mind muting yourself when you're not speaking? I think we get feedback from your microphones too. Thanks.
So Patty, thank you for bringing that up. You're absolutely correct. Lake County does have several exemptions. All of these, by the way, have exemptions for different land use, including agriculture. So Sonoma and Lake both have those. And so I did forget to mention that along with the grandfather clauses.
Red Hawk?
Okay, thank you, Jennifer, for clarifying that. That's kind of what I was hoping was going to happen. So with that, Patty has a couple of great points there, and because Patty is probably the most versed and knowledgeable in this subject, I would like to see you take the lead on this committee that we're going to form, and hopefully we have another commissioner volunteer to get this thing rolling. It's something I'm pretty passionate about. It's something that I've worked with in the timber industry, and then along with the 30 years of stream restoration I did throughout the entire county. we need to do something. And so I think that wraps it up with what I want to say, but anybody else? Okay, so what do we got to do to create an ad hoc committee? Oh, there's Patty.
Here, am I unmuted again? Okay, so two things is I'd be happy to work with somebody on this, but I'm going to be gone for a couple of months in the winter. And I also can't participate in face-to-face meetings. I have some pre-existing conditions and, and I'm an old fart. So I will not be able to participate in the Fish and Game Commission if we're mandated to have in-person meetings. I also feel like I am philosophically opposed to mandating in-person meetings during COVID. And also as volunteers, we don't have any kind of financial stake in serving. So I would give feedback to the county and the state that there is a accommodation measure that should be addressed in terms of making it so that diverse populations can participate in meetings, whether they are Zoom or face-to-face. So that's my caveat. Thank you.
Red Hawk?
Okay, to respond to Patty. So would you be willing to, if we can continue with the Zoom stuff and before you leave for the winter, would you be willing to get this process rolling with another volunteer from the commission and then hand it off, when you leave for the winter?
Yeah. So between now and December, I'm happy to work with another commissioner and, you, Red Hawk, and Jennifer to articulate and get those sidebars that we have discussed. And I think that the things that would be most important to determine is who determines where those setbacks are, who pays for them, and how it affects ag. And also, what are the benefits? So, we can talk about all these disasters that happen to people's homes and infrastructure, but the impacts to wildlife and habitat and water quality are probably, good selling points as well. Because, looking at those photographs, I thought those were very good illustrations, but a lot of times what's happening is not happening in situ. It's happening because there's a undersized culvert upstream, or there's some other activity that's happening. With climate change, we can't really judge how things are going to turn out. So I'm happy. So some of those things that come to my mind, I'm happy to work with in terms of like maybe developing a white paper. And I don't know how Jennifer feels about that, but I think a white paper, which is just sort of a, here's the pros, here's the cons, and here's how we're proposing that it happened because of this, and this. So that's my recommendation. And I have a white paper as an example that it was on cannabis, but that we can use as maybe a guidance document for how it would be structured.
I think a white paper sounds like a great, at least first base on it, and then we can come to the Board of Supervisors fully educated. Between the rest of the commission, I know that I'm very underversed in this topic, so I would need to read a white paper on the situation. Jennifer, you had your hand up, and then Red Hawk.
Yes, and so Patty, I think that's a fantastic idea, and the department is willing to work with the commission in whatever way is feasible and appropriate. The department is still doing remote and will continue to do hybrid meetings. So if we were to collaborate in the future, just know that too, that we are still doing that remote collaboration with Teams or with Zoom. And, I guess I just wanted to also address that I'm not aware of the previous effort that you had mentioned. My supervisor and I had gone to the planning and building, to the director and assistant, in 2018 and 2019 and provided information from other counties. And what we had been told is that county building and planning is not able to develop ordinances or any ordinances or updates unless the Board of Supervisors puts it on their work agenda. And so we have continued to gather information and talk to building and planning, but it would be the Board of Supervisors that would need to direct the county staff. So I think this is a great first step to, first off, thank you again for allowing us to present, and then to be able to work with you on a white paper to give, to the Board of Supervisors. I would leave it to the commission most likely to give that presentation unless you wanted it from the department. So.
Can I just say one more thing? Thank you, Jennifer. The cannabis white paper that I did with Megan McClure at the RCD did like case studies from several different counties on how they address permitting for cannabis. So I think that is relevant. I also, just by the by, happened to be in contact with Roland Sanford, and who was previously with the water agency, and maybe he still has a copy of what he developed and proposed probably back in, I want to say 2005, 2006, around then. So it's dated, but streams have evolved over eternity. So I don't think that it's going to be something that we could, disregard. We should look and see what he did and maybe amend it and review it with our concerns and comments. So yeah.
Red Hawk?
Okay, so what's our next step to formally create this ad hoc committee? Do we have Patty has agreed to take the lead for a short period of time and hand it off to somebody else? Are there any other commissioners that would be interested in participating in this?
How about you, Red Hawk?
Well, I just wanted to be fair and everybody first. Just took it on myself. So if there's no other volunteers, I will work with Patty.
Stream setbacks seem to be out of my realm of expertise. I saw Tracy clapping. Randy, are you comfortable with Red Hawk and Patty working together? Randy's giving us a thumbs up. So let's do the creation of an ad hoc to work on a presentation on setbacks for Mendocino County with the idea that we're going to develop a white paper and end up presenting to the Board of Supervisors in hopes that they understand and share our concerns with building too close to riparian zones. Do we need to pass a vote on this, or is the development of the
to make a
ad hoc-
motion? Someone needs to
Okay.
make a motion to identify next steps and develop the ad hoc.
I make a motion to develop next steps and create an ad hoc.
Thank you, Tracy.
I second it.
All right, let's do a roll vote. Would you call the roll, please, Dee?
Commissioner Powelson,
Aye.
Commissioner Pillar,
Aye.
Commissioner Van,
Aye.
Commissioner Madigan,
Aye.
Chair Newman.
Aye.
We'll pass the motion passes unanimously.
Perfect.
Okay, so moving on to our next item up for discussion and action, a presentation by the Mendocino Land Trust presented by Conrad Kramer. Conrad, take it away, my friend.
Thank you. Can you all hear me all right? Hello, everyone, and hello, Red Hawk. Thank you for the invitation. Let me get my slideshow up here. You guys see that? Can't
Not at
hear.
this time, no.
You can't see it?
Nope.
All right, well, let me see.
Do you have two monitors?
I do have two monitors, but
So it may be on the monitor that's not your Zoom, so you might have to pick the right
I
one.
think I've got it here. Okay. I assume you can see my screen now.
We got you now, yes.
Can you see the slides now?
Yep, we're
Yes.
on slide.
Oh, good, good. Well, yeah, so thanks for the invitation. My name is Conrad Kramer. I'm the executive director of the Mendocino Land Trust. I've been in town for about 2 years now. This is my fourth land trust. I previously led the Anza-Borrego Foundation down in San Diego County out in the desert. I also led the Teton Regional Land Trust in eastern Idaho, White Rock Conservancy in central Iowa, and I've done some consulting with some land trusts as well. And most fun being the Turnoff Atoll Trust, which was preserving coral islands down in the Caribbean. So, so yeah, I've kind of been all about land trusts for quite a while. I do have a previous career, spent 12 years running social service organizations in Indiana and Michigan. So yeah, I'm starting to get pretty old. Anyway, so about the Mendocino Land Trust, we've, believe it or not, been around for 45 years. Although we started off as, very small, all volunteer. We were initially just focusing on public access, trying to preserve public access to the beaches and headlands on the Mendocino coast. For the first 25 years, we were in, all volunteer organization. I think the organization traveled around in a box, probably a banker's box, and got passed on to from volunteer to volunteer on the board. But about 20 years ago, we led the campaign to preserve the Big River estuary, and that was a huge project. And we had a lot of partners working with us as well. But so we were successful in preserving the estuary, and it was given to state parks. And since then, we've gone on to protect some other lands that we passed to state parks as well. First of all, let me just tell you specifically about what we do. We have a number of aspects to our mission. When it comes to land conservation, it's like seems like we pretty much try to do it all. We conserve land for scenic, recreational, and wildlife values. We are very interested in protecting waterways and forests critical to wildlife habitat. We're very interested in preserving family farms and ranch lands and working forests. And of course, we're set up to steward these lands in perpetuity. And I'll get more into that shortly. But first of all, who are we? Well, of course, very important is our board of directors, and hopefully you know some of our board members. Our board chair is Richard Strom, and our vice president is Richard Shoemaker. Richard Strom is from Mendocino. Richard Shoemaker, is from a lot of places, but has been working most recently down in Point Arena. But he has history in Ukiah, and also has a house in Fort Bragg. John Swartley is in Fort Bragg and had a career in journalism. Lori Lagasse is north of Fort Bragg. And then Megan Smitherman. Chet Anderson has been on our board for a long, long time. He's been board chair a number of times. And then we have some new board members, Tom Herman, who's an engineer with SHN Engineering in Willits. And we've been trying to add more board members from inland Mendocino County recently. Terry Serles, who's not from inland, but he's a consultant in working in energy and carbon sequestration. He's frequently in DC. And then we have Tony Surace, who's a ranch realtor from Willits, Tina Batt from Wallala, and Ken Flanell from Mendocino. And then we also have our staff. And forgive me if I pause once in a while. I'm trying to get my voice back after a heavy cold. Was might as well have been COVID, but because it was such a heavy cold. Anyway, Heidi Sorsen is our business manager and our CFO. Nikki Houts is our director of stewardship, and Emily Griffin and Sean O'Rourke are our conservation project managers. And I hope my voice can make it. And then we have other staff as well. Give me a second. Ed Welter, Amy Wolitzer, who works out of the Redwood Valley, and Young, who works right in Fort Bragg, and one of our more permanent interns, Esme. Are there any questions about any of our staff right now, or any of our board members? I assume some of you folks know some of them. So land conservation, as I mentioned, we try to do it all. First of all, I mentioned that we've saved some lands for state parks. And of course, that is certainly the most important one is the Big River Estuary, which was not only tremendous wildlife habitat, but also outstanding for public access between the estuary, the beach, and the Hall Road. It's just a really spectacular place. But we also protected Casper Beach, Casper Headlands, Westport Headlands, and some others, all of which we gave to state parks. We have a number of preserves that we own up and down the coast, and one of them is Navarro Point. I'm assuming that some of you have been there. It's 55 acres, which we acquired in 1999. We acquired with state coastal conservancy funds. It was our first fee-owned preserve, and we built a 1.2-mile trail on it. And of course, it's just beautiful. It's a wonderful place to watch the whales as well. We also preserved Hare Creek Beach. This is formerly a private beach owned by the Babcock family. It's right in Fort Bragg. We purchased it in 2010, again with State Coastal Conservancy help, and a matching contribution from Betty Steckmeyer, a wonderful longtime donor and volunteer for us. We also preserved Seaside Beach, and actually it's really just the public access to the beach, but the beach is so big it feels like a preserve. We acquired it in 2013 from the Coastal Land Trust, which was a tiny little land trust there. And one of the neat things about this beach is it's probably the only place you can take your dog off leash on the Mendocino coast, as long as you don't let the dogs go past the 10-mile river, because that's a highly protected bird habitat down there. And then we protected Pelican Bluffs more recently. Back in 2013, 72 acres, just absolutely spectacular. We have a 2.3-mile trail there, and which opened in 2018. Here's a view from the trail on top. If you haven't been there, it's just right down by Point Arena. It's really amazing. We also have some trails. Well, we've got, other than on our preserves, with the under contract with the Save the Redwoods, we built the Peter Douglas Trail on land owned by Save the Redwoods up by the Humboldt Beach. It's just an amazing little trail. Goes right past those spectacular candelabra trees. It's just a couple of miles long, but we have plans to increase that trail system, which would be really cool, especially with the recent acquisition, Save the Redwoods, of so many additional acreages and their Lost Coast redwoods in that area. Another view of the candelabra trees. And then most recently, the Old Smith Ranch at 10 Mile Estuary. We protected about 50 acres there. We purchased it, and then we just completed a 2.2-mile trail on that property. So that's very nice as well. And then up and down the coast, we actually own almost 100 coastal access easements. They keep coming up as people, build here and there or apply for permits, and we don't hesitate to accept them, and then all of which we could someday open. Of course, that takes money and staff time and stewardship and all of that. So far, we have opened 14 of these, and actually with that, we have opened more public access sites than any other nonprofit, access sites to the coast than any other nonprofit in California. So we're pretty proud of that. And we are building trail right now. And we have 8 more miles coming soon. Some of them will open in the fall. So we're pretty excited. Some of them are inland and some of them are on the coast. And we are trying to do more and more work inland if we can. We also have quite a bit of information on our website about trails, not only ours, but state parks and others. So it's a great resource. Still under construction, but it's a great resource. So then, of course, one of the ways that we work most commonly is with a conservation easement. And what a conservation easement is simply an agreement where a landowner, typically we try to convince a landowner of land that we would like to conserve to donate a conservation easement to us. And what that means is that the landowner donates the development rights to that land, or at least some of the development rights. And so that means that they continue to own the land, they can still sell the land, they can reserve all kinds of rights, like the right to hunt, the right to farm or ranch. They can preserve building sites if they want to, but they are giving up a significant amount of development rights, and we become the owner of those development rights, and the landowner no longer owns them. And so, although they can sell their land or give their land to their heirs, those rights stay with us. And so the conservation easement runs with the land. Yes, the land is then has less value. A lot of people who donate a conservation easement to us can use a tax deduction if they have significant income or income from another business. Then they can get a big tax deduction, which is a benefit to them. Others don't want to donate an easement; they'll want to sell it. And if the conservation values on the land are impressive enough, And if they're willing to work with us and give us some time, then we might be able to raise the money through grant funding, in which case we could buy the development rights from them, buy the conservation easement from them. And so that's another way that we can go. Some of the, the majority of the land that we've protected has been through conservation easements. This is, one of them. It's Lover's Lane in Ukiah. It's one of our newer agricultural conservation easements. It's comprised of 132 acres, a mostly working vineyard within the fertile Ukiah Valley. Another one is the Bonterra Vineyards. This is a 370-acre biodynamic vineyard near Hopland, formerly owned by Fetzer. So that's another example. Another is Ridgewood Ranch. This is pretty big, a 1,700-acre conservation easement at Ridgewood Ranch, and there's large old-growth redwoods on the property as well. It's the home of Seabiscuit, and it's a working ranch with an agricultural school, and it also has some really amazing habitat on it too. Another one is Windswept Ranch, which is really a sheep ranch along the Eel River. It's just a really special habitat back there. It's also a really interesting conservation easement, which I can get into at some point. New ones that we've been achieved just recently is the R&R Ranch. This is a very special. It's a 1,400-acre ranch. It serves as a valuable habitat refuge for wildlife. It contains an assemblage of several oak woodland vegetation alliances, and it's on I think it's called Mewinnie Creek, a tributary of the East Fork of the Russian River. We just closed that last year, and we're pretty proud of it. Another example here on the coast is 90 acres in Mendocino, which is a Mendocino cypress woodland. Obviously an important habitat here that we frequently try to protect. And the conservation easement we just closed, which you might have seen in the news, is in the Eel River Watershed. This is the largest conservation easement we've ever closed, 5,600 acres. It's in two parts. Part of it surrounds Lake Pillsbury, and the other part encompasses the Eel River or part of the Eel River. So it's very special. It's also special to us because there's a lot of public access. This is land owned by PG&E, and people pass through the conservation easements to access the river and the lake and campgrounds. And it's our job to not only protect the habitat out there, but to protect the public access. But we are certainly not going to enter into a battle to try to protect the dams. That's not our job. We don't take on controversial fights ever. In the recent controversy, for example, about logging in the Jackson Demonstration Forest, we took no sides. A lot of our donors are on the left, and most of the landowners we need to work with are on the right. So we take no sides in conflicts like that. This kind of gives you an idea of where we've been working. Our preserves are the little blue, I don't know what those are, 5-sided. And our conservation easements are all the little red squares, and then the lands that we've given the state parks as well. Habitat restoration is also a part of what we do. Believe it or not, we try to do it all, as I said. And most of what we do is what we call working on salmon habitat. And this is a creek that we worked on. It's James Creek, and it was a real challenge for salmon before we started working on it. These are just kind of before and after pictures. the top left, that's what it looked like before we went in and started working on it. And we were basically just trying to make the stream passable. And we usually do 1 or 2 of these projects every year. Most of them are either on our own preserves or within the demonstration forest. And we've been working on it for a number of years. And to date, we've decommissioned 8 miles of old forest roads to reduce sediment runoff into salmon-bearing streams. We have improved 7 miles of stream habitat through adding large woody debris to the streams. And we've opened access to 17 miles of stream previously inaccessible to spawning salmon, and they are now barrier-free through dam removal and culvert replacement projects. So it's another part of what we do. There's all kinds of ways that people can join us. They can become donors, they become volunteers. All of our preserves have volunteers that help us in their management. We also have groups that assist us from time to time, which we appreciate. We are, some people want to know the numbers. We have about $1 million budget, sometimes more, sometimes less, depending on projects and acquisitions, but our general operating budget is about $1 million. About a third of that comes from unrestricted donations, fundraising. About a quarter comes from grants that we seek for trail building or for restoration projects. We also do quite a bit of fee-for-service work, especially for other land trusts in the area. We provide them with staff support, so those are generally the numbers. And then we've got a social group. People come out once a month and join us here and there, and we go out and do all kinds of things, whale watching and all kinds of fun activities out on our preserves. Or sometimes we'll go a hike on some of our new conservation easements with the permission of the owners. So there's all kinds of ways to engage with us. And right now, our biggest thrust is to try to do more to protect agricultural lands in inland Mendocino County. As much success as we've had on the coast, the lands that are under true development pressure are the agricultural lands. And we're trying to be more active out there and raise more money so that we can work with willing farmers to protect agricultural lands. I will just mention that we are an accredited land trust. One of our major sources of funding is our own money. We have $4.5 million in the bank, and that's basically to make sure that we are around forever, to monitor our conservation easements, steward our properties, and to be able to defend our conservation easements if they're ever challenged in court. So that's my presentation. I hope you've got some questions for me.
Thank you for that, Conrad. It was really cool to learn about what the Land Trust has been doing. I've known of the Land Trust for years, but I don't think I really understood the extent of it. So it was very thorough, and I really appreciated that.
Thank you.
Red Hawk, do you have a question?
Yeah, Conrad, thank you so much for your presentation. Like Anna, I've heard of the land trust, but had no idea the extent of it. I do have a question. You were talking about the obtaining the development rights of properties. Could you give an example or two of what are the development rights that you're looking for?
Yeah, well, sometimes people will come to us and they say that they, like to do a conservation easement, and and we'll go out there and we'll find, let's say, a 20-acre parcel that has, you know, all kinds of development on it. You know, it's like they've got a house and they've got outbuildings and they've got, you know, several cottages and they rent out space and, you know, they've got, you know, a small vineyard and there's really no conservation values left. And so we say, yeah, we can't help you, you know. So basically when someone, you know, is, you know, works with us to do a conservation easement, there have to be conservation values that are worthy of protecting. And so like I said, typically you might get, you know, someone come to us with, let's say, let's take a small example, someone with 40 acres of redwoods. That's pretty common out here. And they want to protect the redwoods. They've fallen in love with them. You know, they want the land to go to their heirs, but they don't know what they'll do. You know, maybe they'll sell the property. And then maybe someone will come in, the next person that comes in and someone will see dollar signs and, you know, cut all the trees down or something. So, you know, they've got 40 acres, they've got a house and a few outbuildings, maybe a 2.5-acre building envelope. And maybe they'd like to reserve the right to another 2.5-acre building envelope because they're hoping one of their kids will come and live with them someday. And they want to, you know, be able to build a house. And that's all fine. You know, they can also reserve the right to use the land in a number of ways, you know, whatever it might be, pick berries, pick mushrooms, hunt, you know, little things like that. But the conservation values would largely be protected. Or if there's, you know, someone might come to us with a larger piece where they have quite a bit of development on part of it and no development on the rest. In that case, we'll just say, let's just put a conservation easement on the part that's not developed, you know, and not look at the other part. But certainly, you know, working forest landowners reserve the right to continue cutting timber, you know, sustainably, and you know, ranchers reserve the right to ranch, and vineyard operators reserve the right to grow grapes.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Patty, you have a question?
To Conrad, that I did at one time work for the Mendocino Land Trust as a contract employee, and along with Roger Sternberg, we helped conserve the Casper Beach and Headlands property, and it was a real pleasure working with this organization and seeing their growth over time and all the excellent work they're doing. So I just wanted to thank him and to say that it was a great experience working with them. And yeah, I encourage anybody who is interested to check them out. They're a formidable organization with a lot of great projects.
Well, thanks. You know, Roger still works with us. He's kind of in the background, but he's a contractor and he's leading up some really big projects for us. And you know, it took us 45 years to get to 25,000 acres protected, but on some of these big projects that he's leading and other projects that we're working on, we might double that within just a couple of years. So seems like things are looking pretty bright.
And you have a new office.
Yes, this office has heat.
All right, well, thank you so much. If we don't have any more questions, we'll move on.
Okay. Do you want me to stay?
All right, and you are more than welcome to, but you're more than welcome to sign off. I know on a Tuesday night, this might not be your ideal evening, but we do appreciate you coming and taking the time to share what the Land Trust is working on with us. It's definitely an amazing undertaking that you guys have done here, and all the work. We're very appreciative. I know we all love nature, and it's just good to know that there's folks out there working as hard as y'all.
Thank you. Well, we'll hope to see you all soon.
Will do. All right, let's move on to the 2022-23 grant award cycle. Commissioner Paulson, I have you tagged as the lead in this conversation, so I'll let you take it away.
Okay, thanks, Anna. So at our last meeting, there was some discussion briefly on what are we doing with the grant cycle. And so I believe we have to, at this meeting, unless we choose not to, is set the dates and the award limits for the 22-23 grant cycle. So I'm not 100% sure what we got to do. I'm going to lean on Dee to give us some guidance on the past of what the cycle limitations were and what the previous award amounts were.
So from what I can tell from the archives, that they usually opened the grant cycle for people to submit proposals starting in like August or September. They accepted proposals through about November, and then they met with the proposals that they felt fell within the purview of the funding from the state in December. And then the committee would decide at that point, after meeting with them, who to grant the awards to and who not to. And then with notification after the first of the year and the funds going out within a couple months of the first of the year. So, and then with the final reports due back by the end of June or July. So just before the next grant cycle starts. So that's historically what the process has been. So what we just need to do, the commission needs to just decide what the dates are going to be for each of the steps. So according to Adrian, there's about $120,000 in there. So you can, we have a minimum of $10,000 earmarked per year for administration of the commission. So other than that, you can decide how much you want to award. I can't tell you at this time how much money you're bringing in every year. So it would be my recommendation not to deplete the fund because we don't know how much we're getting each year at this time. So historically, it's been between $25,000 and $50,000 total for each of the projects that were awarded. That's what I know.
Sorry, I was just taking notes there. Commissioner, I don't know whose hand was up first, so I'm going to go in order. Paulson, would you like to speak?
Yes. So what I remember, and kind of following up on what Dee just said, if we open it August 1st to like September 30, would be the application period. And then we would review in like November, correct? Am I remembering this correctly?
It would open in October, close would be November. We would meet in December. So between the November and December meeting, the grants would be sent out to all of us to review. So then by the December meeting, we would come prepared. I believe we would do a closed session for this. So we would go into closed session to discuss, and then in January, we'd be able to announce the awards. And they would have 6 months to follow through June, July. We would request that they have their final expenses by July of that same year.
Okay, that sounds about right. And then from my recollection, there was one cycle that I remember where we had set a $5,000 limit to a maximum of $25,000 total for that year. And then there was another year where we kind of off the rail. I think we awarded 2 grants for $25,000 each or something of that nature. It was a significant amount. What are your guys' thoughts on the dollar limits? I'm kind of cautious on how much we spend or set our maximum amount for. I think 25,000 is probably a good way to start since we're just getting back into the grant cycle program. So that is the dollar figure I would like to use, and I think we should open it like what Dee said and Anna said. That's it.
Commissioner Madigan and then Commissioner Van.
I defer, let Randy go first because he's got more history with the organization, and I'll go after him. He hasn't addressed things.
Yeah, thanks, Patty. The presentations, we used to have a night when we invited the people that were applying to come in and give their presentation in public. Is that still an option, or is that wiped out because of the COVID concerns?
Yes, that would be the November date. So we would close, and then at the November meeting, we could have them present. I guess either the November or the December meeting, they would have opportunities to present.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with Red Hawk on the, the cap it at 25,000. I know a lot of the schools used to put in for, $5,000 to $10,000 grants for education and stuff like that. And I would like to see that program continued as well.
Okay. Patty?
Yeah, so I guess I could pick a couple of things that I'm concerned about, and that is we need to make sure this time that we get those final reports, and that if we have $120,000, I think it might be good if we capped it at $80,000 that we give out, which would leave us with $40,000, just so that we don't just go boom bust, like one year we have money, next year we don't have money, kind of a thing. And I also know that in the grants that we dealt with at the RCD, a lot of our grantors held a retention. So they withheld, like, it's usually commonly 10% of the award back until they get the final report, and that if the commission signs off that they did the work as described, then they get the full amount. So I would ask Dee, perhaps if she could weigh in on whether we have any ability to change the terms from how it previously rolled out in terms of a retention. I mean, I know it makes extra bookkeeping and extra administration, which is not ideal. It's nice to just give people the money and trust them to follow through, which, we had a little trouble with last time. So that's my recommendation. And I think I had one other thing that the other thing is that if you roll out a grant and you make the award in, say, January or February, and then you only have 6 months to do the work, if it's on the ground work that is being proposed, a lot of times there are constraints that don't allow on the ground work until like August because of bird nesting season or rare plant concerns. So we should be mindful that if it's going to be actual on the ground restoration, that ending a project in June might not allow them to complete it.
Yeah, I agree that
Sorry.
there's some things that, go ahead, Dee.
I just wanted to respond to what Patty said, that as far as I could tell in reading the regulations that govern this money, there's no restriction in how you do it. So I think you can make up your rules. You can change the rules if you'd like to. I couldn't find anything that laid it all out. So I think we could do that. And maybe do half the money at the beginning and half the money at the end or something like that.
Thank you, Dee.
Commissioner Paulson, and then Commissioner Van. Red Hawk, you're still on mute.
How about now? So I'm going to back up what Dee just said on the limitations on how the money's spent is kind of loose, but there is 100% accountability. And so if, for example, if we awarded the money and the project wasn't completed, they can submit what they have done and do a continuance. And I know that Randy has done that on, or I'm pretty sure Randy did that with a couple of his projects. Then going back to the money with that Patty suggested 80,000 is the cap. So I'm going to go back a couple of years ago where we increased our spending, and I think we were in that 50,000 plus range. We knocked our budget down to, I believe it was $20,000, if I remember correctly. We stopped the grant cycle because we didn't get any funding again until 2021. So it was like a 4-year period where we were anticipating funds coming in, but all of a sudden they weren't. So we stopped the grant cycle so we could maintain a budget for our administrative costs. And so that's my hesitation on going big, because the way the monies are awarded are, there is no consistency. So we could be have an excess of money, what it seems like an excess of money right now, but this may not, we may not get any additional funds for another 4 or 5 years. So those are the things that I'm looking at. And that's all I got.
Commissioner Van, then Commissioner Peller.
Yeah, what Red Hawk said, yeah, we did allow, a continuance on the projects, mainly the Hammerhorn project, due to road access and different issues. Basically, I think all we requested from them was some sort of a letter saying why, they're not moving forward as planned, just some sort of an explanation. And there didn't seem to be a problem with any other commissioners, to grant that extension.
Commissioner Peller.
Yeah, I just want to kind of echo what Commissioner Paulson was saying. My vote or my input would be $5,000 grant, $25,000 of $5,000 grants for for application.
Yeah, I think I would agree that our cap, so our total spending would be no greater than 25,000, and that we would have the ability to grant extensions as needed. Or if a grant comes forward and states that, like, I will need to do this work past July, then that's something that we would take into consideration, as Patty said, with timeframes and summertime work versus wet season work. I would also be interested in exploring the retention of funds, especially if the work won't start until after the next period is closed. So if it's going to start later than July, then we would potentially retain more of our funds to ensure that that work does get completed as we expected to. I am a little bit concerned on capping the grants at $5,000 per grant. I would like to open it up with no minimum, and they can grant or apply for as much as they want. So someone could apply for the whole 25K. It's just whether or not we would give it to them. There are several projects in the past that have applied for a considerable amount of funding, and $5,000, maybe I just work in a port that applies for big money. It might just be me, and that's totally okay, that I think $5,000 is not that much. And I realize that that is a bad thing to think as I'm saying this. So I'm going to stop there. But I think no minimum would be nice, or no max. Commissioner Paulson, and then Dee.
Okay, Anna, you actually made a really good point that I think doing a maximum cap of like 25,000 without the giving the commissioners discretion to, like you just said, if somebody applies for something that is for 25,000, that actually is really important to all of us, we would have that leeway. Or maybe we would just say, okay, we're going to give you 15,000 and then award 5,000 or 10,000 to another grantee. So I agree with your statement there.
I'm going to jump in before I turn it over to you, Dee. It's also possible to ask in our grant applications if they have match funding, and if they weren't granted the total amount, if they would be able to take on the project otherwise. I know that I'm asked for grant matches all the time, and it's kind of something that is in most people's realms and views, that they're going to have to find matches. It's also very risky to ask for the total amount of a grant. Usually you want to ask for less, because it's quite uncommon for one organization to spend all their money in one location. But I would be interested to see what those larger projects are. Okay, I'm done now. Dee, go.
I just want to share too that I don't mean to be critical or anything, but in reading the information that was provided in the grant proposal packets, I feel like it was it's like the information was there that you had to do the final report, or else we'd ask for the money back and all of that, but it wasn't really clear what the parameters were and what was expected of the grantee. So I think we need to, and that's something I will do for you, is rewrite the information that goes to people who are asking for money to be very clear about what the expectation is. And I think that will be really helpful, because we still have 3 projects that haven't turned in their final reports for the audit. So the same 3 that we talked about last month. So I haven't gone forward with saying, okay, you have to send the money back yet now, but that's kind of where we are if we don't get those final reports soon. So I don't want to have the commission keep going through that. So I think it's important that you develop a better structure so we prevent that. And part of that is communicating to the grantees about what is expected. And that's something I can help with.
Commissioner Madigan and then Commissioner Van.
So a couple of things that might be good, and that would be to say, a typical award amount is $5,000 to $7,500, but grants up to $25,000 will be considered. And then I also think that if anybody is owing us a final report and hasn't delivered, they should not be able to apply. So that, the application is really simple. So it's like a 2 or 3 page, if I remember correctly. So people aren't going to put a huge amount of skin into the game in order, it's not a waste of time. If it were like a 25-page application, I would be hesitant to leave the amount at $25,000, because it's just not worth people's time, to put that much effort and then get turned down. So I think we just need to keep it simple. I agree with what Dee said about making it clear that if they default, that there are, repercussions. So anyway, that's what I have to say.
Commissioner Van.
Yeah, Dee, on the 3 that are still outstanding for the audit, was 1 or 2 of those grant that I supported? I can't remember. Or were you just looking for?
One is the Round Valley Tribes.
Yeah,
we need a final report on Round Valley Tribes, and we have 2 from Reef Check. So those are the 3.
Okay. I looked through my records and I can't seem to find their that to the council meeting and share with their president to follow up on this.
So I haven't heard from them at all, so I don't know where they stand.
Do you have a copy though of the grant that, and the monies that were awarded?
They do.
I can't seem to find the paperwork in my file. Is there any way you could share that with me? And I can take it before the council?
Yes, I'll email it to you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so at this point, do we want to spend more time developing this, or do we want to make a decision on total spending? And D and I can work together on the grant application and bring it back to the commission for continued approval, a more fleshed out grant, the request for proposals and RFP, as well as better timeframes set. We'd also pull together the need for final reporting and how that works and what that looks like, and bring it back to the commission. D?
I'm just
Then Red Hawk?
concerned with your timeframes. Because your next meeting will be in September and then you have November. And so we're kind of in a time crunch here. You want to give people enough time to actually learn about the proposals, the grant proposal process, and then do the grant. So we want to get that out, I would think, next month, no later than the 15th of August, and give people 60 days to respond. And that would put you into the September meeting or the November meeting. So if we accepted, we put it out in the middle of August and through the middle of October, then you could review them at the November meeting. And I think if you wait to develop it in the meetings with all the commissioners involved, then you're gonna run out of time. So we can work off the previous applications and information that went out and just make it better. I think the grant application is fine. It's just the explanation of what the expectations are that just needs to be a little bit clearer. So I don't think personally don't think it needs to come to the commission to do that. We just need a motion for that the grant proposal cycle is going to start on a date in whatever month you decide, and what the next dates are. So, and then how much you want, how you want to do the money.
Okay, so we're looking for a motion to carry forward with the grants, opening grants on around mid August, and then the grants will close mid-October in time for a meeting. Presentations would happen at the November meeting.
I think that's a great idea. I think getting it out. And is it possible also for you and Dee to send out the paragraph of clarification for us all to just look at? And, it's not Brown Act thing if we all just individually say if we have any concerns or suggestions.
Yeah, I can do that. I can work on it and send it out to all of you so you can see what I've.
Yeah, I think that timeline works fine. So I make that motion.
So just to be clear, I have opened the grant cycle with the application period of August 15th through October 15th. Review and presentations at the November commission meeting, with awards at the January meeting.
Yeah, awards would then be the January meeting.
Sounds good.
We might have to do a special meeting.
You could try to do a
Well, no, I
special
guess
meeting
at the
in December.
November meeting, we could have closed session and discuss.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
You could have presentations at the open as part of the meeting and then go to closed sessions to discuss. And you could do a special meeting in December and award, so that gives the checks, time for the checks to be cut by the auditor, and they can be cut in January. If you feel like you need to have another meeting in there.
I think it's fine to go hear the presentations and then go into closed session, decide, and then alert people. We can send out emails after that, alert folks, and then have the checks to be cut.
Okay.
Red Hawk?
Okay, so the last grant cycle that I participated in, when we were going through and awarding the grants, it was actually, it took a couple hours. So if we were going to try to do it all in one meeting, it could potentially be a, 2 to 4 6-hour meeting. So I think we hear the proposals for the grant and then have a special meeting. And I believe that's how we conducted the awarded who we decided who got the grants was a special meeting. It was Commissioner Brown, Van, and myself, if I remember correctly. That's my recommendation, not try to cram it all into one.
Yeah, I agree. That's going to make for a really long meeting. So we'll do November, the meeting and the presentations. And then in December, we'll go into closed session. We'll hold a special meeting, discuss the awards, and then grant following that. Okay. Red Hawk?
Okay, with all that just said, I second Patty's motion.
What, do you want to hear this, what I have?
Yeah, Dee, would you mind clarifying the motion for us? Because it got a little warped up in there.
I have opened the grant cycle with application period from August 15th to October 15th. Review and accept presentations at the November commission meeting. Hold a December closed session special meeting to discuss and decide on awards, with awards granted in January, and final reports due July 1st, 2023.
Lovely. Thank you. Our gibberish into a nice motion. So I believe that was first made the motion by Commissioner Madigan, and then it was seconded by Paulson. Dee, would you call the roll for the commissioners?
Yeah. Commissioner Peller,
Aye.
Commissioner Madigan,
Aye.
Commissioner Van,
Aye.
Commissioner Pallison,
Aye.
Commissioner and Chair Newman.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Cool. At this time, I'd like to do a second motion, if we can, to set a limit for the grants at $25,000.
I second that
And we don't
motion.
I second that.
I don't think I can make the motion because I'm the chair.
Oh, you're
So I
right.
need someone to make the motion. Sorry, thanks. Just so we're kind of all on the same page, and it will add parameters for D and I to work in. So if someone wants to make a first.
Make a motion to set the parameters of 25,000, like Anna said.
I second.
All right, Dee, would you call the roll again?
Commissioner Van,
Aye.
Commissioner Madigan,
Aye.
Commissioner Peller,
Aye.
Commissioner Pallison,
Aye.
Chair Newman.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Cool. We have a grant program again, guys. This is exciting. Let me find my agenda here. That closes all of our items for discussion and possible action. We'll move on to commissioner reports here. Commissioner Paulson, District 1, I'll let you take it away.
I have nothing to report. Thank you.
Commissioner Pellar, District 3.
Hey, I was just gonna give you guys an update on my exclusion job with the county. I don't remember if I told you guys that I technically got the job, but I was like the only one that applied, so it was kind of like a default thing. And where they're, I know, right? And so where they're at with that is they have to take it to county council is taking it, is describing the state, because I have never gotten paid to be a vendor for doing such services, the reason for my services, and just kind of explaining what we're doing here with the program. And if anybody here wants to see my RFP that I turned into the county, I'd love to send it to you. The name of the company is Mendocino Wildlife Solutions. Just basically it's a education outreach service with heavy emphasis on dispatch and workshops. So I do on-site visits 1 day a week and a countywide workshop 1 day a month, and with the goal of getting micro-regional wildlife support teams together. So that's the scoop. Yeah. And August 2nd, we're going to see how it goes before the board. And that's my report. And all's pretty well. I was really excited about the elk, our biologist. So I'm sad he left, and I'm hoping I'm going to reach out to a couple other people that I know have wildlife biology degrees and let them know that we've got vacancies.
They're lucky to have you, and I'm shocked that nobody else applied, but I still think you're the right lady for the job. Full support. Commissioner Madigan, District 5.
Nothing to report.
Commissioner Van, Inland at Large.
Just still working along with the Forest Service on some of this stuff that they're trying to get going with the August complex fire. Seems to be kind of a slow roll at the moment, but anyway, it's still moving forward. Just not a lot to report for you guys yet.
All right, and myself, District 4, there's been an interesting turn or update with the salmon fishermen. So the Salmon Ocean Association Council. Ooh, I always struggle with this one because there's so many of salmon ocean projects. Regulatorily has the right to sample a fisherman's entire load at the offload. However, we have quite a few boats in Fort Bragg, and there are several other boats in Pillar Point and across the state that do off the dock sales. So they sell their catch over a period of days. This doesn't allow for fast and easy sampling with the dockside samplers. What the samplers requested was that the fishermen pull all of the fish off of their boats at one time and lay them on the docks and lay them on their vessels until the entire load can be viewed at once. For some of our boats with smaller deck spaces that take extreme care of their fish, this could leave the fish out in the sun for up to 3 to 4 hours. The fishermen weren't happy with this alternative. The samplers weren't happy with the fact that they didn't get to see the entire loads at once. So there was a lengthy call today between the two programs the fishermen and the council trying to determine what options are available. It's an obvious degradation to the catch. The more you handle salmon, the faster they degrade. You also can't put them back into dirty ice. You'd have to re-ice the catch into clean ice. Ice is an expense. The council also, at least in the Fort Bragg area, only has one person that works the dock. So that person can't be stationed on one boat for a 2 to 3 day offload. They really want to go and sample. Well, they're required to sample 20% of the entire fleet. So spending 3 days with one boat is not a valuable use of their time, but it also makes it non-randomized sampling if they specifically don't sample a certain boat. So it was a 2.5 hour call that everything went well on the call. No one got overly upset. Everyone tried to work together, and I'm happy to report that side of it. No direct solutions were made today, but at least the communication has started that the fishermen are unhappy, but they understand the needs of the council to collect the data. And those that are collecting the data are trying to find the best way to keep their data set at a high integrity without degrading the load of the fishermen. I always like this stuff. I think it's super fascinating how to bridge these gaps. So I thought I'd bring it to you guys tonight. I'll keep you up to date if anything goes insane, but I think they're going to be able to come to a resolution. Everyone wants to work together here, but that's my one report for the evening. Commissioner Van, you got a question?
Yeah, are you still in touch with Josh Russo?
Mildly so. I know he's around. I think he's fallen in love with sturgeon fishing from Facebook. There's lots of pictures of sturgeon on his Facebook pages.
Okay.
But I know that as COVID is starting to kind of ease up and all the restrictions are easing up, the Casper campouts and ocean campground campouts and urchin removals are starting to happen again.
Yeah, okay, good. Yeah, he was always a good source of information for us on the coastal stuff, and I always enjoyed his reports. Maybe we could reach out to him again and see if he would be interested in, joining us.
Yeah. Commissioner Paulson?
Yeah, I agree with Randy. Maybe Dee can put him on our agenda for our next meeting to do some kind of a presentation or just a quick report of what's happening out there, because he was pretty valuable on keeping us posted.
I'll send him a text right now and see if I can't get an email address for us all. I think all I have is his social media accounts. All right, well, if there's nothing else for the evening, are we ready to adjourn? All right, the next meeting will be September 13th. Go ahead.
Okay. I was just wondering where the 13th meeting will be. Still undetermined?
I think so at this time, yes.
Do you want me to reserve this room again? In Ukiah, or do you want to do it somewhere else?
Red Hawk. I'm happy with Ukiah. I think I'm the one that comes the farthest, and that's fine by me. Red Hawk.
Yeah, I think let's try to let's go ahead and reserve this room, and then as a group, let's say 2 weeks before the meeting, try to figure out what exactly we're going to do. We're going to do a hybrid thing, or Patty expressed concerns that she won't be able to attend an in-person meeting. But I believe that if the rest of us can make it in person, I think it would be good. And what's going to happen is we need to somehow incorporate the public back into our program and get people involved again. And I think that is probably one of the biggest things is they can't meet in person. And anyway, that's my 2 cents. So I think if we could reserve the same room and then we touch bases again 2 weeks before the meeting. Is that enough time for me?
Yes.
Yeah, that's all I got.
Real quick,
right.
Anna, was there some sort of in our bylaws that we have to have 2 meetings in Willits, 2 meetings in Fort Bragg, and 2 meetings in Ukiah?
It's not
Yes.
specific. The bylaws say that you will move around, but the county, but it doesn't say specifically when or how many times. I think historically, you guys have alternated every other meeting or every meeting at a different, to all 3 locations, but it does not, it's not specific in the bylaws. It just says that you will have meetings in Willits and in Fort Bragg and on the coast, at least once a year.
Okay.
Red Hawk?
Okay, to kind of follow up on that, what Dee said was correct, but where with hybrid meetings, there's specific locations that we can only go to because of the equipment that is required to live stream and then all of the connections via Zoom and be in person. So I don't know if we looked into it, but in Willits, I mean, this is an option. I think the place we had in Willits may be able to accommodate a hybrid type of meeting. And that would be closer for Randy, Tracy, and actually Anna. And I don't mind driving wherever. So is that something we want to look into? Is the
location, where did you guys hold your Willits meeting?
Randy's going to have to help me there.
The library?
We used to meet at the
No,
Willits
community center.
City Council.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've met there, and at the
So-
Willits City Council's chambers. We've met there a couple of times.
Okay, in order to do the Zoom meeting, it has to be a location that county IT can help me with. So I'm going to say that it should be at a county facility just to make things easier. So there are several options in Willits that I can look into. Like maybe the VA building or even the social services. I think they have a conference room that has access for the public, but I can look into that. But that's going to be, as long as we do hybrid meetings, that's going to be something that we have to take into consideration. I know in Fort Bragg that we can use, there's a social,
Yeah,
go ahead.
We've met at the county library before. Is that an option?
Yeah, that is an option, yeah.
For
Okay, so
the
I'll do that. Do you want to try for Willits at the next meeting, or do you want me to just work on locations for the future?
Let's reserve the Farm Bureau room for now because we know that it works and everyone's comfortable there. And then we'll see how these new variants start playing out as well too, before we get too ahead of ourselves. I've heard rumors on the radio that we're going to go back to more stringent measures. So before we get too ahead of ourselves, we'll reserve the room, especially as the wintertime is coming, and just make sure that we keep everyone safe. We'll check in 2 weeks ahead of time so we don't have any confusion and poor Miss D at a location all by herself.
It's huge room and I'm the only one here.
It's a party. It's a party. And although I would be more than happy to get away from my barking dogs for these meetings, they're super distracting. All right. Does that answer all of our questions? Next meeting will be hybrid. We'll have the farm advisors conference room on 908 North Bush Street in Ukiah reserved. And we'll check in. Final meeting locations will be posted on the agenda, as well as Zoom links. All right, let's adjourn this meeting at 7:47, like the airplane. Super fun. Any airplane references?
Ah, thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thank you all so much. Dee, thank you once
Bye,
again. You've done an amazing job in
thanks.
bringing us together.
Patty, I'll be sending you an email, Patty, first
Okay,
figure out a time to start working together.